Welcome back to the FU Cancer podcast. Today, we're exploring a truly unique approach to healing, one that invites us to slow down, breathe deeply, and reconnect with the world around us. We're talking about forest bathing, an immersive experience that allows us to immerse ourselves in nature as we support healing and well-being after cancer care. My guest today is Rebecca Perkins, a UK-based writer, coach, and guide who helps women navigate life after cancer with compassion, courage, and connection. She's also the founder of a group called Women Beyond Cancer. In her practice, Rebecca creates spaces both online and in nature where women can slow down, reconnect with themselves, and discover who they are beyond the diagnosis and treatment. As a qualified coach with a background in well-being and personal development, Rebecca blends self-compassion practices with the wisdom of nature. Her work includes forest bathing, guided journaling, and one-to-one, as well as group coaching. Following her own experience with breast cancer, Rebecca became deeply passionate about addressing the often overlooked challenges of life after treatment, the loneliness, identity loss, and need to rebuild trust with one's own body. Her conversations and writings explore these themes with honesty and hope, helping women find meaning in their healing journey. Rebecca is also in the process of creating self-study programs to support recovery after cancer and collaborate with nature-based retreats. She's also a teacher on Insight Timer, offering support for those on their own cancer journey. Thanks for listening to the FU Cancer podcast. My name is Christina Rollins. I'm a dietitian, mom, and wife to a pretty awesome cancer survivor. We said FU to cancer nearly 25 years ago and are still going strong. I'm excited to share the FU Cancer movement, where we are a community of survivors, fighters, caregivers, and advocates, connecting our shared experiences, passion, and determination to live a holistic and well-balanced life. Stay tuned, because we've got a lot to talk about. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today here at FU Cancer. I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to chat with us today.
I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you for inviting me.
So I would love to start by hearing more about your story. So I know that you've spoken openly about your personal journey through breast cancer. How did that experience lead you towards a nature-based healing method and the creation of Forest Connections?
Oh, thank you. Well, it was really interesting because about a year before I was diagnosed with cancer, I came across forest bathing. I was introduced to it and I fell in love with it immediately and went straight online when I got home to find where I could study it. So I actually did my qualification, which was to become a forest bathing guide, before I was diagnosed with cancer. So I'd already begun to set up Forest Connections, and then I found that when I was going through my treatment for breast cancer, I wasn't able to work because the treatment for me was pretty brutal. But nature was really important for me in my healing. Going through treatment, as I'll talk about as we go through the interview, and now afterwards in the recovery journey, if you like.
Mm-hmm. So for those of us who may not be familiar with the term forest bathing, what exactly does that mean? And then how is it different from simply going for a walk outdoors?
Sure. It's got nothing to do with swimming, so you don't need a swimming costume with you. It comes from the word Shinrin-yoku in Japanese. It has its origins in Japan. And basically what that Shinrin-yoku means is bathing your senses in the forest atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So how it differs from going for a walk or going for a hike. If you think when we're going for a hike, we have an end point. We're going to walk so many miles, and usually it's quite a brisk pace. Mm-hmm. So we're doing, whereas forest bathing is more being. So in essence, we don't actually go very far. We don't need to have, you'll have your walking boots on probably just for comfort, but it's more about being in nature, becoming aware of your senses. What do you notice? What do you hear? What do you smell, for example? So it's very much the opposite of going for a walk, which is, so this is more about slowing down, being in nature, rather than going for a walk with a friend and getting lost in your conversation that you don't notice the bird song, for example, or you're chasing after your dog. So it's the opposite of that. If that does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I think what you're describing is really a slow and sensory experience, which I've heard you describe your sessions. So walk us through a typical forest bathing session. Like what does that look like and feel like for participants?
Sure. Well, a forest bathing session can be an hour long or up to 3 hours long. The longer, the better, I always say. You get more of the benefits if you're in the forest for a longer time. So what I tend to do when we start with a small group, or I could be doing it with just one individual, is that we enter the forest, if that makes sense. We leave all of our thoughts and our to-do lists behind us. So it's a very conscious, we often put down, I'll find a stick or a branch and we'll put it down on the path in front of us in order for us to step over it, so that we are stepping into the forest. And the first thing we do, and we've got no phones with us, or they're switched off and tucked away in a bag. So it's, we are literally leaving the world behind us, our life behind us. So we step into the forest, and the first thing we do is we will ground ourselves. So I will run through a short invitation, a meditation, if you like, of asking people to feel their feet on the floor, wiggle their toes within their shoes, so they're grounding themselves. And then I'll introduce them to, what can you hear, for example? What's close by, what's in the distance, what is nature sounds, what is man-made sounds, and just immerse yourself in that. And we'll spend 5 minutes maybe doing that. And then I'll move on to each of the other senses. So, what can you touch? How does the skin feel? How does the breeze, the air feel on your hands? Can you feel your feet within your shoes? Can you touch a tree that's in front of you? What does that feel like? So you're bringing yourself into the present moment, which is really important, especially, well, for all of us. But I think when you're recovering from illness or just very stressed, then to bring yourself into the present moment is really key. I then will invite them to kind of different invitations. So, for example, it might be at this time of year in the autumn, where the trees are magnificent, is just to spend time noticing what's happening around them. It might be noticing the color of the leaves. It might be noticing following a leaf as it falls. Okay, so you get the sense it's really slowing you down. We might then sit, if there's water around, we might sit by a lake or a stream and just be with it, just notice. And that's one of the key words, is I invite them. So there's an invitation to notice. And it has profound effect. So we do that, and it's really slow. Sometimes the sitting by the water, for example, might be 20 minutes. And you might, and it's really interesting to begin with, you might get a bit twitchy. It's like, oh, come on, what are we doing next? But that's just our programming, right? The longer you sit there, the more you relax. And it's beautiful. So we go through that depending on how long we're going to be in the woods, and there are a variety of different invitations. And then often we will finish with a tea ceremony, so almost like a nod to the origins of forest bathing in Japan. And I'll usually bring a flask with some hot water and some herbal teas, and we'll sit there together, and we might just spend a few moments reflecting on what people noticed. And then we close.
Well, and we've talked a lot on this podcast with cancer in particular you're either reflecting on the past and what you think you've lost, or worrying about the future and
Mhm.
what that's going to look like. But what you're describing is really just today, where I am in this moment. I think that's just wonderful.
Yeah. And it gives, our minds are so used to doing and thinking and worrying and stressing. And this is a very different type of reflection because it does take you out of the past and the future and brings you into the present. It's really powerful, actually, you know, and that's why I love it so much.
Do you find that your participants struggle with like the no cell phone thing? I mean, we're so glued to our cell
Mhm.
phones now, scrolling and constantly seeing that change on our phone. Do people have trouble disconnecting and really getting into the moment from that regard?
That's such an interesting question because, yes, to begin with, because it's almost like, but I want to be able to take photographs. I'll say, well, do that another time. Just let's put it away in your bag. And you can tell that to begin with, there's an anxiety around, but I need to be in contact with people. And,
Mhm.
what if somebody needs to call me? And, I will say, obviously, if you are waiting for a call, if there's an emergency, then fine, but keep it on silent, have it vibrate so nobody else is disturbed by it.
Mhm.
But what's so fascinating is that maybe after the first half hour, there's a relief. I don't have to be on my phone.
Mhm.
And people really, it's almost like being given permission to switch it off.
Mhm. Yeah, I've had that before where I forget my phone, or I my phone breaks, right? Like I drop it or something, it malfunctions. And that first few hours is terrible. It's the worst thing ever. But then you look back and say, well, this was a great day.
Yeah, totally, totally. And there's almost a reluctance then to switch it back on.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I
exactly.
coped. I did 2 hours, 3 hours without my phone, and it was bliss.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's
Hmm.
really interesting.
So, what science or personal observations have you seen that connect forest bathing with recovery and resilience, specifically in the cancer population?
Sure, this is just so beautiful. So, from the research, we know that forests or being in woodland, what that kind of, with the trees, a tree canopy, lowers cortisol, lowers blood pressure and heart rate. And we know that these are stress markers.
Hmm.
And we also know that chronic stress can suppress our immune system, right? So, being within the forest allows us to truly heal.
Hmm.
One of the other things that so fascinated me when I was studying was that trees give off a natural chemical called phytoncides, which are like the essential oils that are part of the tree. And we know that these boost activity of our NK cells, which are the natural killer cells, which play a key role in our immune systems, including fighting cancer cells. There've been studies in Japan where they took people with cancer into the forest for a couple of weeks. And I don't know the number. It was a small group,
Hmm.
and they found that tumor size had reduced when they came out, and their NK cell activity remained elevated for long after they'd come out of the forest, which is amazing, right?
Hmm.
The other thing is that nature activates our parasympathetic nervous system. So that's the moving us away from fight or flight and into that state of rest and digest. And we know again that that is really helpful for us in our healing and in our resilience. And for most of us, or a lot of us certainly, being out in nature increases our feelings of well-being
Hmm.
and joy and a connectedness. And for me, the personal experience of that is my own personal experience was when I was well enough to go into the woods to just sit and to be on my own. And I took a cushion with me and I wrapped up warm and I had my beanie on because I had a bald head. And I sat there and I felt that I could surrender to the forest, if that makes sense, that I could just be held by nature. And it felt incredibly healing. It felt very emotional. And I cried a lot when I was in there, but I felt held. And I know that others have experienced this when I've been in the woods with people. And you can see an anxiety to begin with, but you see the physical things. You see people's shoulders dropping. You see them often going like a big exhale and a settling down. You see their face calm and just being, again, it's being in the present. In this moment, I'm okay. And it's beautiful to experience. And the thing is that if you're not well enough, or if you're not able to go into woodlands or forests, then you can do this by looking out at a tree from a window. Okay. You can go to your local park. You can even find nature videos on YouTube and sit and watch those. And there's something you can, if you like essential oils, you can diffuse those, or the tree ones. You can vaporize those in your house, and you get that sense. Have houseplants around. I've got some behind me here. I've got downstairs loads of them, because it's bringing nature in. It's not the same, but there is huge value in that as well.
Well, and you also offer audio and virtual nature experiences. So talk to us a little bit about how those work, and can they really replicate the feeling of being immersed in the woods?
Yeah, it's interesting because I have had, people come back to me to give me feedback on them. And I wanted it to be like an introduction, that if you weren't close by, so that we couldn't go forest bathing together, that you could learn how to do it for yourself. So I've recorded almost like a forest bathing session where people can either sit in their home with a pot plant in front of themselves, or they can go outside, put your headphones or just one earphone in, so that you can listen to the audio that I'm saying. You can then press pause if you like, and then you can be in your woodland or your park or your forest, and you can imagine that I'm there with you, all right, guiding you. So it's really powerful, and especially if you don't know, the first time you go on your own, you don't know what to do. And then you get easily distracted, or you think, oh, I'm doing it wrong. So lots of judgment can come up about whether we're doing it right. So to have me as your kind of virtual in your ear guiding you, I think is next best thing, really. Yeah. And you get to hear the woodland around me as well, because the sounds are really important. And I don't know whether it's now would be the right time, but to give you an example as well of how you can use this when you're inside. When I was going through chemo treatment, I had chemo for 5-6 months, and I found that all of the sounds of the chemo unit really distressing, all of those beeps, all of the, and the smells and everything like that, and those seats that we sat in. So I would put my headphones in, find a playlist, a nature playlist on Spotify, put my headphones in and zone out. And it was amazing. I could really feel myself relaxing, so that I wasn't then, yes, I've got the line in and I've got the chemo going into me, but I'm sat there with my eyes shut, listening to birdsong, actually feeling okay. So it's finding what works for you and how you can make it work for you.
Mhm. So I think you've given a lot of great illustrations of how this can help individuals living with cancer. What about the survivors, when they're years down the road, or even caregivers? So someone who's not personally experiencing cancer, but they're experiencing it along someone that they love.
Yeah. Well, for caregivers, what a beautiful thing to do together,
Mhm.
because you can share that experience, and the caregiver is also taking time for themselves. I mean, do it on your own as well, but just to go into the forest and it could be a beautifully glorious sunny day in the spring, it could be freezing cold in the winter, it could be raining, and it's beautiful every time you go because it's
Mhm.
different.
Mhm.
And just give yourself that gift of nature healing you, okay, just emotionally, as well as breathing in those wonderful essential oils.
Mhm.
So whether I'm now 2 years since the end of treatment, and I go in because it's still part of my healing. It's still part of my recovery journey, particularly if I've been feeling, I've just had my annual mammogram and I'm waiting for the results. So my mind is going, okay, so I know that going into the woods always helps me center me again, bring me back down to a much more balanced state of mind, if you like. So whether I mean, how wonderful for a carer to be able to do that for themselves. And then they go back to the person they're caring for refreshed, right?
Mhm.
And also for those that are years down the line, there's always something we get from being in nature. This is the beautiful gift that nature gives us, which is that peace of mind, that settling, that, I don't know, questions that's answered, that you've sat by a tree for 20 minutes and just suddenly an answer comes to you about something.
Mhm. So, from your experience guiding groups, what transformations have you seen when people really allow themselves to be fully immersed in nature?
Yeah. It's so interesting. So, especially for people that have never done it before.
Mhm.
So you meet them in the car park and they're kind of a bit anxious and a bit kind of, slightly wound up, maybe shoulders up, or a bit, that kind of nervous chatter that people do.
Mhm.
It's like that. So you feel the group and a little bit tense and excited as well. And you just literally feel it as you go through the session, this unburdening of themselves. It's almost like they're leaving all their stress in nature. They're relaxing. They're quieter as well. And often what I'll do after each invitation is say, what did you notice? And I say, you don't have to say anything, or you might just say a few words or whatever. And it's just seeing the difference in the answers. They become much more reflective
Mhm.
in how they are. So by the time they leave, I've heard so many times, can't we stay? Can we stay?
Mhm.
So you can stay, absolutely,
Mhm.
or come back again. And then there's a confidence in doing it themselves. Um, and that's what's so beautiful to see. You see the healing, going on.
Well, for our listeners who are hopefully inspired to experience the outdoors and try forest bathing, what's one simple forest challenge that you'd encourage us to try, even if all we have is a backyard, a park, or a tree outside my window?
Yeah, no, that's an absolutely perfect. So there are two, but they're kind of the same. We have something what we call a sit spot. Okay, so this is where you go and sit.
Mhm.
So if it's in your backyard, you might have a bench there. You can sit and you can just, even for 5 minutes, watch the tree. Okay, look up into the canopy and notice it. But do this regularly. If you were to do it every day for a week, or every day for a fortnight, what changes would you notice? What's the weather like?
Mhm.
So you begin to just become super reflective on, I've noticed that the leaves have started to change, or there's fewer leaves on the trees today than there were 2 days ago. Or it might be wet, or it might be a sunny day. What is the light like? Go at different times of the day. So that this is all about noticing. There's nothing to do. This is about noticing. So that's really the kind of picking one tree. And that's the other thing. Pick one tree and go and sit with it, or go and watch it if you're, you can't get outside, or you're in some apartments and you can see a beautiful tree. Just watch that over the weeks and notice how it changes. So start small like that.
Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experiences with us today. I think your story really reminds us that healing isn't always about doing more. It's about being still, listening, and letting nature really remind us that we're part of something so much larger than ourselves. So thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. I enjoyed talking to you.
And listeners, to learn more about Rebecca's work, visit womenbeyondcancer.co and forestconnections.com. We'll put those links in the show notes today. And you can also find her free Awakening the Senses guided meditation on Insight Timer. I know I'm going to go after this and download it right now, so I would encourage you to do the same. And of course, as you're traveling on your cancer journey, we would love to navigate along with you. You can join our community at fucancer.health. Until next time, I'm Christina Rollins. Thanks for listening.